Hi, everybody. Sorry, I've never been this late before, but I'm ready to go. Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo, and I'm tired, but here we go. So I did not make it into the morning session. I woke up at 1 a.m., but I tried to fall back to sleep, got there at 5 a.m. I missed the morning session by about 5 spots, so I got into the afternoon. I have page 17 through 36 to read through my notes for the afternoon. And thank you so much to Patricia for giving me her morning notes. So here we go. As always, this is about these two girls on the screen and hopefully headed towards justice. Hi. So I'm about to read from my screen and then my pages, probably for over an hour. So I'm going to start right now, and I'm not going to look at your comments. No, I'm not. I'm already making mistakes. Here we go. So the morning session, the state calls, I believe it's Darren Giancola. Let me add this here. This banner. No, that's not right. I'm going to try and put on the bottom of the screen who's testifying. So according to Patricia's notes, it was Darren Giancola. I believe he's a Carroll County sheriff guy. That's that. Here we go. Yes, I spelled it right. Here we go. So state calls Darren Giancola, detective with Carroll County Sheriff's Office. Before I go, even though there's an echo, can somebody write yes, we hear you? Tom is 6'1". Somebody say yes, we hear you decently. Oh, Lordy. All right, thank you. Here I go. Nick asks him of his credentials, etc. Darren was off that night, I guess the 13th. Around 10 p.m., he saw a social media about, sorry, this is her handwriting. Social media about Scanner. He came in to help. He tried to get into some of their electronics, I guess Libby maybe, couldn't get into them. He then went to the private drive to help in search. The private drive is at the end of 625 West. Around 12 a.m., he used a flashlight to aid in search. As he got to the bank under bridge near cinder blocks/rocks, he saw a disturbance of leaves and exposed ground. He thought that was odd. Nick McClelland hands him pictures of the north side of the bridge, pictures of the ground disturbance as exhibits. After noticing the disturbance, he showed it to firemen who was with him. Then he went home. They were going to start at 7 a.m. the next morning. Page 3 of, she has about 11 pages. And again, she did the morning session, and in my notes, I'll review the afternoon session that had some interesting revelations that we've been wondering for a while and some answers to some questions. Someone had called in about having a video or videos. He didn't address it because he got a call to go to cemetery. He reported back to work at 7:30 a.m. He contacted landowners to advise of, Patricia, help me, to advise of something, scenes or searchers? Yeah, maybe to advise of searchers, sorry. He got a call from Detective Liggett, and he told him to get to the cemetery. When he got to cemetery, he and Deputy Yoder then walked down to the creek. So I think this is on the 14th, the morning of the 14th. So Giancola got a call from Detective Tony Liggett, and he said, go to the cemetery. So Giancola and Deputy Yoder, also from Carroll County Sheriff, walked from the cemetery down towards the creek. They passed an extremely distraught female. On the way to the creek, he didn't see the bodies. When he and Yoder got to the water's edge, he encountered other people, and the people pointed in the water. He saw the multicolored shirt and shoe. They go over the exhibits of pics of clothes and the shoe in the water. Another searcher said he thinks bodies were beyond them, northeast maybe. He could kind of see something, a whitish color. He and Yoder then go and see the bodies, one nude and one clothed, deceased. Both had large lacerations to the throat. Both had substantial amount of blood on their person and underneath them. No life-saving measures taken. Both were dead. He immediately contacted Liggett. Yoder and he took names of people around them. So I guess yesterday we heard from Jake Johns and Pat Brown. And I guess Pat Brown said his information was taken by 2 police officers. So it was Yoder and Giancola. Page 4. Other troopers and investigators showed up within minutes. They began a scene log, like a crime scene log, and placed crime scene tape. No other individuals entered the scene at that point. Detective Liggett told him to search opposite side of creek. So go down the hillside, the south side. He used private drive to get to that location. He stayed all night in the location across the creek. So this is Giancola. No traffic on 625, no people, no cars at that point. She wrote, I guess he asked him, what kind of gun do you have? Glock 17, 9mm. He carried that gun. All officers recently switched to that gun within the year. So Baldwin now did his cross-examination of Giancola. Baldwin shows photos only to Darren Giancola of the end of the bridge. Baldwin says, would you agree the pics don't accurately describe the location? And Patricia put in parentheses, I think that's what he said. It's hard to hear them sometimes. Sorry if it's hard to hear me in this room. Slide marks were to the east, ground disturbance. So I guess the down the hill area, obviously bridge guy says go down the hill. I think we've all seen it's pretty steep down there to the private drive area. So when you hear about these slide marks, I think maybe yesterday or the day before, I said that Jake Johns may have said that he saw some slide marks. I thought it was at the south side of the creek going into the creek, but it appears to be like the go down the hill, very steep hill. So slide marks were to the east, ground disturbance. Baldwin says, quote, you weren't surprised to see slide marks because it's steep, right? Darren says, I was surprised. That's why I pointed it out. Baldwin asked if he ever got the trail cam footage video. He said no, doesn't recall if anyone did. Page 5 of 11 of the morning notes. Baldwin, are you sure both had blood around them? Darren says yes. Could you see if there was any wet marks? Darren said Abigail's clothes looked wet, the pants in particular. Did your phone work when you called Liggett when you found the bodies? He had AT&T, and I'm pretty sure he said yes. Now it's time for Nick McClelland to ask him some more questions. When you saw the bodies, was it a flat area? He said that whole area was low topography, like a valley/dip. Go. She wrote go. What electronics were being viewed of girls? He said an iPad. He could only see missed calls, etc., because the device was locked. So the prosecution then just does another cross-examination, or they're continuing, sorry. Jason Page. Oh, here we go. I have to change my thing. While I'm doing that, are we good? Can everybody say yes? Let me edit this. I'm not sure if I'm spelling his last name wrong, but he's a crime scene investigator. So he was started to be interviewed in the morning. Yes, it's okay. Here I go. So now I'm starting Jason Page. Okay, the prosecution is interviewing Jason Page. He is Indiana State Police. He's a crime scene investigator. They ask questions about his experience, etc. CSI, which is a crime scene investigator for 16 years, 1 month of training, worked with laboratories, and was shown how to do things, etc. Have you worked with any forensic pathologists? He says yes, mentions a few. He says there have been many. He has worked 950 to 1,000 scenes that he's looked at, maybe 100 on site. How Have you worked scenes with firearms, sharp edges? The answer was yes. Page 6 of 11, continuing with Page. So I guess he references Sergeant Dwayne, who was, he's the next guy to have. So today there were 3 people. So, no, Giancola, Page, Sergeant Dwayne Gamdez, maybe, and Brian Olahai. So I have to get to those. Dwayne and Brian were in the afternoon, and so was Page. He finished in the afternoon. So page 6 of 11, continuing with Page. Someone called to ask his assistance. It's not unusual for him to collaborate with other individuals on a case. He was contacted in the afternoon, and he arrived around 1:30 p.m. on the 14th. He parked at the cemetery. He walked down that cemetery hill, the ravine, down toward the crime scene. Upon arrival, he walked down to the crime scene tape. They had crime scene logs to see who got there, what time, etc. He got initial information and facts known at the time. The 3 of them were to work the football-sized space around them, then look at area where they were last seen, and they had a dive team in the creek. So like the search and rescue people in the, I don't want to say scuba gear, but whatever. Then look at area where they were last seen, and they had a dive team in the creek. He made a diagram of the topography of the area, showed trees and the foliage. They designated ground zero as a 30 feet diameter area where they primarily worked that day. He made a diagram of the girls' location in regards to the topography as well. Brad Rosie, the defense attorney, asked, how did you do the diagram of the girls with topography? Page explains how he prepared it. Deer Creek is flowing towards the left on the screen slide. So there's a huge TV that they put a lot of stuff on. Topography from cemetery to creek is a fairly steep area. Page 711, continue with Page. Page goes over area on slide. They looked for anything near ground zero. They put yellow rope on tree to provide as a landmark to designate different space. So at some point in maybe one of the Frank's memos, one of the 4 or something else, the defense referenced like there's some kind of yellow rope on a tape. What could it be? Odinous? And Page said that's like a crime scene technique to, I guess, maybe show where they started and maybe where they're at right now. I wasn't there, so I'm not exactly sure. It wasn't Odinist yellow tape or rope or the killer's rope. He arrived around, so this is Page arrived around 2 and left around 10:20 p.m. on the 14th. I guess there's a diagram of bodies is shown on a slide. The item, she wrote, tree, Libby on right, Abby on left. So they did something called 3D imaging photography from the top, looking down at the bodies, various branches, large limb, twigs, I guess you're with branches near feet, an exposed area near the bottom of the diagram, and an area of blood below both girls' bodies. At this time, Walden has his arm around Rick Allen and appears to be speaking to him and maybe comforting him. Again, this is one of my very nice YouTube subscribers who I met in line. She said it's like meeting a celebrity. I was like, I don't think so, but thank you. So she took notes in the morning because I did not get in. I got in the afternoon, and I'll read those notes in a minute. Continuing page 7 of 11. Shows Exhibit 21, photo of crime scene area in the woods, picture just of woods and the creek and the tape. Shows Exhibit 22 on slide, photo of woods with yellow tape, yellow rope, and the bodies in the background. Exhibit 23, photo slide from different angles. So these are like crime scene photos. She wrote, this is horrible. Yeah, in the afternoon, I did have an opportunity to look at the close-up photos of the girls, and I never saw the leak. I'm sorry that there's an echo in this room, but I can't do anything about it. I never looked at the crime scene photos, and today I saw one from kind of far away of Abby, but I just could not look at them. And I did kind of see one of Libby's legs, which I'll get into in a half hour. Exhibit 26, photo shows large limb over Libby's body. Page 8 of 11. Exhibit 26 is considered a medium shot of ground zero. So these are just a bunch of pictures. I don't want to waste too much time. It's just like crime scene pictures. She talks about another blood stain was in view. People said like the layout of where the F tree was a lot different than they expected, even from, I guess, the previous crime scenes that, or the photos that leaked. She wrote, also stains on tree, not behind girls. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not sure about some of these statements. So that seems to be just a description of like 20 different photos, like Libby's face close up. She wrote horrific. Libby's hand. Blood on right thigh of Libby. 50, number 50, numbers on ground, night or effect of flash, tree with blood to left of bodies. Number 1 bloodstain, he can't remember number 2. Sergeant Olahai collected the majority of evidence, and he was the last person to testify today. He's coming back tomorrow morning for cross-examination. Page was carrying, okay, so they're asking these law enforcement officers, were you carrying a gun and any ammunition? Because the defense is going to say maybe that 40 caliber bullet unspent round found near the bodies, which I'll get to later exactly where that was found. They're saying that the defense wants to suggest that maybe a law enforcement officer dropped that. So the prosecution is asking, what kind of gun were you carrying? Page was carrying a Glock 19 9mm or a 6-hour 45 caliber 6-hour 227. He did not have a 40 caliber ammunition with him. When he returned in the daylight the next day, so I guess on the 15th, they checked with metal detectors and looked for more stains and objects. He used a chemical to check a tree for stain. Crystal violet is the color, she said. Image of what looks like the so-called F tree. My words, not his, is what she wrote. Olahai took samples previous day. Page 10 of 11. We're almost done with the morning session. More exhibit photos. Number 53, tree with chemical on it. Shows trees. Number 54 shows trees. He examined area in grand cover. Shows large blood stain also. Shows diver in creek in background. Picture of bridge. He crossed the bridge himself. Page said it was sketchy. Picture of bridge with platform. Just going through these exhibit pictures to save some time. View from the private drive looking up at bridge. Exhibit 60, may we approach, Your Honor? View of creek with bank to the left. Bank is on same side of bridge. He describes that area as a floodplain. Let's see. Number 6, excuse me, exhibit 62. Similar to 61, shows steep, sheer, elevated bank. When you were there on the 14th in something to Abby, her clothes and seemed damp. He said, sorry, I can't read her notes in this section. I apologize. Exhibit 63, straight view of Creek Bank. Final page from the morning session, 11. CSI investigated on the 19th. 9 CSI investigators participated. Break for lunch. And then she wrote a funny thing that I won't repeat. That's it for the morning. Now, my notes for the afternoon. So this is page continued. What happened to that thing? Sorry. Maybe I never showed it. I apologize. Here we go. The afternoon. It's continued with page, but I have some observations. So Rick was wearing a blue and gray vertical striped shirt with the khakis and the same prescription eyeglasses on his head. Yeah, so certain people didn't get in, but there's 4 empty seats in the defense area. Plus there was one in the public area, and I said to the guard, like, you can let one more person in from the public, and he said, okay, but he didn't do anything. And then Gull came in 1 minute later. Yeah. The seating process really is, the process is not a process. That's the problem. They need to put me in charge. Here we go. Afternoon started at 1:07 p.m. Again, Trooper Page, his cross-examination was by Rosie. I'm reading off my notes. Forgive me. Here we go. I have like page 17 until 36, so I'm going to be going for a while. Rosie, and again, I have to try and read my handwriting. Were you aware the girls were last seen on the 13th in the afternoon? Page, I believe so. That they were found on the 14th? No. I don't know. Any idea, opinion about the time of death? Primary job documented. I missed some of the stuff we could not hear very well, so I'm sorry about that one. Have you ever done investigations in a rural area? There are scavengers. He said, yes. Rosie said scavengers like coyotes, raccoons, buzzards, and Paige said yes. Sometimes, this is Rosie, sometimes you can tell how quickly they access the crime scene. Not necessarily. Have you ever used insects? Yes. Like flies get to bodies and they can tell you about the time of death. Paige said there's a lot of variables, so no, not really. Or no answer. He just said a lot of variables. So Rosie said a lot of variables, yes, numerous variables. In this case, you can't generate time. Paige says, yes, you cannot. Crime scene integrity pertain to idea. Pertain to idea and maintain the natural state. Yeah, so you want to like maintain the natural state of the crime scene when you're about to process it. He asked if it's a challenge. If it's a challenge to maintain, I did not hear the answer. Rosie, are you aware some breaches in crime scene integrity? Paige said, what do you mean? Rosie said there was information leaked to the public early on, like in 2017, and Paige says, I'm unaware of that. Did anyone take did anyone take photos that were not in law enforcement and disseminated to public? So did like searchers take photos of the crime scene in 2017 and then somehow pass them around? Paige said he was unaware. In 2017, were you familiar and involved with crime scene photos and information leaked to the public? No. DNA, is it evidence that takes extra time? Sorry, I apologize. DNA, is it evidence that takes extra precaution at crime scene? He said yes. Were swabs collected? He did not, someone else did. It was Olahai, who I'll get to later. Paige mostly took photos of the crime scene and outside the crime scene. Are you aware of any DNA from the crime scene that connects Richard Allen? Not aware of any. Did you use any alternative light source that they refer to as ALS? It's alternative light source. So did you use any alternative light source for tree evidence, semen, saliva, or sweat? Yes, including bodily fluids and fibers. In general, that's one of the processes they use. Page 18 of 36. Using light to recover trace evidence. He didn't recall any stains. Looked when bodies were there and were removed. So they used this alternative light source when the bodies were there, and then they removed the bodies and they used this alternative light source again. He said he does not recall any of those other types of stains other than blood. Was a rape test kit used? He assumed it was done at the autopsy. He did not attend the autopsy. He said earlier photo, I guess that was on the screen in the morning. You acknowledged unique circumstances with the sticks. I think he said, have you been to any crime scenes with sticks like that? And he said, yes, with branches and sticks at other scenes. Do they note the arrangement? And he said it did appear that the bodies had the sticks on top. He really didn't say that they're arranged, I think, in a particular way. Did you recover evidence on sticks? They did not collect the sticks. They examined the sticks, but did not recover, which I'll get to that later. He said they used white light and daylight to look at the sticks. Well, then he says, Rosie said, did you pick up the sticks? Yes. Didn't find anything of significance. Then they moved on to the clothing, which it's either this part or the next part. I think it's Olahai gets into some answers that we've always been looking for. Clothing. Abby was the only one clothed, and her clothes were damp. I wrote nowhere on clothes. There was an obvious outer line up to her thighs. Sorry, I don't know. Could look at photos, but today he has no recollection. So on the February 13th and 14th, did he know the weather report? And he said no, but he could review. Did you know the temperature? I think he said 57 was a high and 34 the low. He pulled it up on his phone to refresh his memory a few days ago. Did he go into Deer Creek for the depth? No, it's not his responsibility. Are you aware of that information? No. Shoe impressions. Photos around the scene south side of the creek? Yes. There were a couple along the north bank of the creek? Yes. Did you do anything with those about the shoe, etc.? Providing photography. After that, other analysts would analyze it. Did you think it was relevant in this case? I don't know. Photo documentation, and it's not my role to do anything after that, maybe? When did he get there? He wrote, I think 151, crime scene logged, he checked in on the 14th. A number of people in that area were there before you, and he said the searchers mostly. Were people in the area on the 13th? I believe so, yes. There's a photo of blood on the tree, exhibit number 52, the F tree, and it's because the F because of the image and the pattern. He refers to it as Page refers to it as a blood stain, not the F tree or pattern. Did the stain get attention from the crime scene team? Yes, because defense called it out, I guess a few months ago, that it was intentional and not random, and Page said yes, that's why they looked at it even further more recently this year. Page 19 of 36, Page continued. Page suggested that the state hire a blood spatter expert, Pat Cicero, this year. Yes. Did Page have any other involvement in that blood spatter process? No. Back up to DNA. So Rosie wanted to go back to the DNA topic. How hard for the lab to take DNA and analyze it? Like how much time to get to the lab? Are there various times? I guess Page said there's various times. So for you to collect hair and send it to the lab, does it take several days? It was hard to hear Page at this time. He said something about sending it to storage. He said that some of these questions were outside of his knowledge. Did you ever submit evidence? Yes. Did you ever submit DNA? Yes. So how long does it take? Weeks? I could not hear any answer. I'm sorry. Hair expectation to turn around to lab and give an explanation about the hair. He said, I do not know the process. Something about autopsies and like toxicology takes a long time. So some of the stuff is not really a quick turnaround. But Rosie then followed up, can't the lab like prioritize something? And Page said yes on occasions. Exhibits E through L, Page reviewed the papers. So those were photos he took from the crime scene and also some other person took. Something about they were taken on February 14th, and he said yes. So Rosie then went to the TV to do something, and there was a long pause. So a lot of these are just photos. Exhibit E, significance of the photo. It was an ALS exam, like I said before. ALS means alternative light source. Brian Olahai, his last name is spelled O-L-A-H-I. He used a filter wavelength. I wrote filter wavelength of life. I think I meant light. I'm tired. Thought something shining on the ground. A gun cartridge, unspent gun cartridge. Page did not take the photo. So they showed a photo of this unspent round in the ground. It's like 6 inches to 8 inches to the right of Libby's right foot. I wrote here, lots of leaves, can't see the bullet or unspent round. So there's a photo of Libby's leg. and near Libby's right ankle was where the round was found. And I wrote here, lots of leaves. Rosie said, what looked like, so that was what it looked like in its natural state. And he said, yes. So next thing was a preview photo with the area disturbed and cleared, and Paige said yes. So they took a photo of the shiny object and somebody else like kind of blew some of the leaves away to get a better look at this unspent round. Rosie said there's a bare spot noted in the photo, and Paige said yes. Did you visually inspect the unspent round? And he said he did not touch it. End with projectile facing down. So the issue that came up later was we've heard that the unspent round was like kind of pushed into the ground. And so, yes, that's what the photo showed. Like they call it a head stamp. So it shows the caliber of the bullet or the round and the manufacturer. So Rosie's saying the projectile was like face down with a pointy edge into the ground. And Paige said, I would have to look. So Paige went to the TV, said it was difficult to tell. He may have said yes at some point. And he noted that the primer and the writing side was on the outside. So that means yes. Paige confirmed, like the projectile was facing down. Have you seen pics of the cartridge as it was being lifted out of the ground? No. Have you seen pics of the cartridge in any other circumstance? No. Have you seen pics of the cartridge on a table, like an evidence table? Not his responsibility, but he was present when this round was located. Page 20 of 36. Did you ever see the cartridge in any other position? I cannot hear his answer. Total photos that Paige took at the crime scene, hundreds. Have you ever been in charge of evidence and crime scene process? Yes. Sorry, I can't read my handwriting. Something cartridge lifted and photographed video. No, so I guess he asked, did you take a video while you were taking the cartridge out? And Paige said no. Did you grab it with gloves or a tool? Discretion. So it was one of many items. They used gloves on their hands. Is it recommended to lift an item and put it in the glove in your hand and photograph it? No. But there are marks on the items, including the unspent round, that could be critical to the investigation, and Paige said yes. So it makes sense to take a photo in the state as it is lifted, right? We never photograph things in our hands. Then it said details would be done at the lab. Or maybe Rosie said, is it unreasonable to expect a cartridge will be pulled and set on a table? Not necessary. What if the side of the cartridge was damaged and had maybe like a paint mark? Paige said it was documented, and Rosie said in that state, and Paige said yes. So then Paige like told the process for doing evidence and stuff. That cartridge, it is critical in this case. Paige said how it affects the case is not my interest. I collect the evidence and I don't know the significance of that evidence when I'm collecting it. Chain of custody. Take the cartridge and document the journey to the lab. Paige said, yes, that's what I do. Could have document in natural state, then then put it in a pillbox to document. Then they send it to evidence locker. Yes, if you wanted to, I guess he said you could have videotaped it. So then Latrell from the prosecution asked and answered 3 times. Oh yeah, so when Rosie kept asking this, Latrell interrupted and said, Rosie has asked this same question and it's been answered 3 times, and Gull sustained the objection. Geographical aspects of the crime. Exhibit 5, Paige went to the map on the TV again. Deer Creek, the north shore side, is where the girls were found. Take measurements from the bottom of the river to the creek line. No, he did not do that. Map. So there's a map on the screen that Paige made. No reference to elevation on your thing. He said, I thought that was the purpose of the map, which I'm not sure what that's about. Then he asked about the creek line to the cemetery elevation, and I could not hear that either, sorry. Page 27 of 37, 21 of 37. Rosie gave him a piece of paper. Then he said 18. Paige said, I don't remember this. Elevations, not helpful to tell the amount of the incline up the hill from like the ravine area on the north side of the creek. Do you know the elevation from the bottom of the creek to the bank? No, we did not take any measurements. It varies along the creek. Yes. Were you asked to do a larger scale map? Yes. So Paige showed on the map where he concentrated like his evidence collection and stuff. There was a flood plain, which is I think the area where the bodies were found. He did High Bridge, Monon High Bridge, to document the property, also like the Weber property at the end of the private drive. He walked up the lane, Lane, which Rosie was calling like the private lane instead of private drive. Paige said there were other individuals searching in that area. On the south side of High Bridge, around the private drive, he went to the bridge and it extends beyond the driveway. Yes, I'm not sure what that's about. Is it fair to say at the end of the High Bridge, there is a gate and barrier? He said yes. So if you remember, like if you go the entire length of the bridge to the Weber property, there used to be that old like post, like maybe 40 feet beyond the edge of the train tracks. And so Paige said, yes, there was a gate and barrier there. And then Rosie started talking about what it used to be. So he said a rail line extends south, and Paige said yes. So if you follow the train tracks, the elevation does not change. And Paige said after the barrier, yes, it's basically stable. He would need to look at his photos. There are no large hills off. So Rosie said there are no large hills once you're off the bridge going in that south area. And Paige said, no, it's generally flat. Rosie asked where he parked at the cemetery. He says, yes. Was there law enforcement there? Yes. When you got to the woods, was law enforcement there? Yes. Rosie wanted to know how many police were there. 10, 20, 30? I can't remember. 10, could be more. There was a dive team in the creek. Yes. How many? I don't know. But I had some awareness of them. Are you familiar with 300 North? I took it to the cemetery. I'm not familiar. I'm not a local to Carroll County or Delphi. So they pointed out a circle on the map. I have a space here. So I wrote trail from 300, Route 300 North to the Monon High Trail in the Mears parking lot. He talked about the farm across the street, the Mears farm. Asked to do inspection of were you asked to do an inspection of anything north of 300? So that's like on the opposite side of Ron Logan's house, like the Mears barn. So Rosie asked him like a bunch of stuff. Were you inspecting north of 300? I wrote here that Paige answered no 4 times to 4 different locations, like north of 300 North. I wrote here, there's a circle to the top left area of the map. I wrote near Hoosier Heartland Highway, and Paige said, no, I did not look at that area. Were you asked to search this one other area? And he said, no, I'm not sure which area it was, sorry. So Paige went away from the map back to the stand. In February 2017, do you generally agree that visibility was good? And Paige said, yes. I think Rosie said, it's as good as it's going to get with there being no foliage on the trees, no leaves on the trees. And Paige agreed, yes, the visibility was good. He then said, there was not a lot of undergrowth on the ground. Paige said no. So he was affirming there was not, like a lot of grass. At the cemetery, could you see the creek line? Paige said he had no memory of that, like the view. On the north side of the private drive, do you agree when under starts to incline to home? Yes. Okay, so he's saying, like as you're going down the private drive and you go under Monon High Bridge, going towards the Weber house at the end, do you agree the north side of the private drive After you go under, starts to incline as you go to the home, and Paige agreed, yes. Page 22, incoming. Oh. Okay. Page 22, we're still continuing with Page. Oh. I wrote, on the road, is there a good view of Deer Creek? Yes. So not the road he's talking about is the private drive. Is there a good view from like the Weber's private drive of Deer Creek? And Paige said yes. As you go up the drive, the creek gets closer, but way down below, Paige said yes. Luttrell had an exhibit from the east side of the south side of Monon High Bridge where the leaves were disturbed. Did you ever try to go down the hill, which is like the down the hill thing? Paige said yes, I did. Rosie said something about loose gravel and slide the way down. Paige said there's gravel near the walking trail, like at the top, at the end of the Monon High Bridge. There's no gravel on the hillside. Is it your impression the area gets a lot of foot traffic? I don't know. Oh, a lot of us know about this. Like along the private drive, there's a tree that has like a tribute with like a bunch of shoes on it hanging off the branches. Rosie said, are you familiar with the tree with the shoes? I don't know. Did you talk to anybody about foot traffic by people not lining? Please stand by. Oh, here we go. Did you talk to anybody about foot traffic by people not living at the Weber house at the end of the private drive? No. No more questions from Rosie. Luttrell from the prosecution, it's his turn. He handed exhibit 182 to Paige. He said it was an RMS report, a map that was drawn by Sergeant Jim Cody, maybe like C-O-D-Y last name. He's a crime scene investigator supervisor, and he was there that day. Does the map have coordinates? Yes, from Google Earth. Paige held it up for the jury, and he showed where the creek goes. Covered north side of the creek, bridge, a lot of work on floodplain? Yeah, sorry, that's confusing. I guess something like the land drops off at the end of the bridge into the floodplain. In covering the area and examining and meandering through to find an easier footpath from access road to where he took some of these photos of the creek. Yeah, so let me just explain that. So I guess he's saying that Paige was at the top of the end of the railroad tracks. He went down the hill area, and then he went to the south side of the creek to take some photos. But Rosie was asking, like, what path, once you got down to the private driveway, like, how did you get to the creek? Now, how did I lost my way. So I guess he was asking Paige, do you remember how you got there? He said, I don't know. So Paige went back to the TV and the map. Rosie, do you have a recollection of the route from the access road? Oh, I already just said that. I'm sorry. I don't think he did. How long did it take from the access road to the creek? A few minutes. I didn't know where I was going. Just looking for like the easiest path from the private drive to the south edge of the creek to take some photos. Paige went back to the stand. Do you know the width of the creek between the areas you were examining? His diagram referenced Google Earth. The scale was approximately 100 feet, so the width of the creek. Page 23 of 37. So before Rosie asked, I guess it was Paige, or somebody asked Paige, about scavenger animals and insects. Cases utilize forensic entomology to establish timeline and time of death. Have you ever used, sorry, the question was, did you ever use forensic entomology? And Paige answered, yes, because bugs were present at certain crime scenes on like 4 to 5 occasions, 4 to 5 crime scenes. he never used like bugs and stuff for determining time of death. So on February 14th, was there any bug activity? Nothing overt that I recall. So ground zero is like the 30 feet diameter of where the bodies were found. In ground zero, who in it while you were present on the 14th? Brian Olahai, Brian somebody else, and myself, up until the gun cartridge was located. I think there may have been one other person, this Gamsden. I don't know, give me a minute to get to that part. And he said, and one more did scans, which must be this Dwayne Dazman. Plus later, the coroner came. So like 4 people processed the crime scene, and then the coroner came. Libby was moved first. Cartridge discovered prior to Libby being moved. Yes. So for a long time, people have said the gun unspent round was found days after the bodies. That's incorrect. It was found even before the bodies were moved to go to the autopsy. Did you wear gloves? If I wasn't wearing gloves, it was because I was not touching anything. So if he touched something, he would put the gloves on. Next was talk about swabs and items collected, bodies being touched by a gloved hand. Page did not do that. It was not his role to be doing that kind of stuff. Next, talking about the cartridge, something about ALS, the alternative light source, requires like goggles or glasses that somebody else said were orange. And so the alternative light source is maybe like bluish purple, I think. So when you wear the goggles, you can kind of see different things. Okay, so yeah. So how did they find this cartridge? They put on, 2 of the guys, I think, put on these orange goggles, as one of them was like putting this alternative light source. And there's a 3rd guy who noticed like a shiny object to the right of Libby's right leg, like 6 to 8 inches away. And that's when they started examining, like, what is that? And they discovered it was this unspent round. So I wrote cartridge, the sergeant who was doing the ALS goggles and glasses, that is when he saw it. Did he and the other guy look closer? I just wrote ask him. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was. I think I wrote, when Rosie asked, does it make sense to put cartridge on a table or any more forensic purpose? Paige said, fingerprint photography. Oh yeah. So Paige says his camera could not really get good detail for like fingerprints. So there's like another person who does fingerprint photography. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's wrong. I think his camera is good for fingerprint photography. It has high resolution. Oh crap. I wrote his lenses don't have, so I might be wrong on that. But sorry, I apologize. His camera has no capability for tool mark analysis. Back to Rosie asking some more questions. Primary job is what? To preserve the information photographically? And Paige said yes. Rosie asked, seen the bullet unfired? Oh yeah, so Rosie said, if you've seen bullets that have not been fired through a gun, Rosie said they all look the same, right? And Paige, I could not hear what he said. Then Rosie mentioned Smith & Wesson, and you can read a head stamp on the back end of a round. And Rosie said, if they're all in a box, unspent rounds, they all look the same, and Paige said yes. I wrote here, documented at scene, make sure the same one today is the same one from the crime scene. So Rosie's trying to establish, like, how does a jury know that what they're going to see as evidence as this unspent round is what you took out of the ground right next to Libby if you didn't videotape it? Paige said, you're asking the wrong individual. So Rosie said, there's another end to the cartridge. Some can be copper or Teflon coated. We don't know because we haven't seen the photographs of the other end of this round coming out of the ground. And there was no real answer from Page on that. Exhibit 182 was about this map and the line southwest to northwest around ground zero. Do you agree elevation changed around a certain level? And he agreed there's a gentle incline. Page 24. Did you take measurements from the south side of the bridge down to the private drive in the floodplain? No, somebody else did. Did you carry a Sig Sauer gun? I do now. Did you have is that a common law enforcement gun? I believe yes. Gull, they were done with Page. Gull asked the jury if they have any questions. They did not have any. The next witness was at 2:33 p.m. Dwayne, I think it's Dazman, D-A-Z-M-A-N. Not sure. Time to change my thing. Hide. I'm just typing this guy's name so you guys can see as I'm reading. It says he was sheriff, but he's at the crime scene. We'll go with that. Here we go. So 2:33 this afternoon, Dwayne Dazman, not sure on the last name. We'll call him Dwayne. Hey. Some county sheriff, deputy, they asked his experience. County sheriff, not sure which county, deputy, retired Indiana State Police 3 years ago. Since 1987, trooper in Newton and Jasper counties, blah, blah, blah. He worked in a lab for the last 20 years of his career. Does he have training? Yes. Firearms, arson, homicides, fingerprints, alternative light sources. How many crime scenes have you been at? No record, but hundreds. How many of those were homicides? 200 death investigations. What's the duty of CSI? Help agencies document crime scene, collect blood, submit to lab. So on February 14th, Rosie asked, what was your job as CSI? I think he said Lowell District, maybe L-O-W-E-L-L District, Lafayette, and he worked Carroll County. Do you remember when you heard about the missing girls or the deceased girls? I was at the Lafayette Post, so I went to Delphi, arrived at 1:11 p.m. on the 14th. At the cemetery, he walked down the trail near the creek. There was a tree barrier, had tape around it. So he met Sergeants Olahai and Page. I just had Page, and then after him is going to be Olahai's testimony, which is probably the most interesting and revealing. So what was his first role on the 14th at the crime scene? He talked to the other guys, took photos. They started away and then would take the photos closer and closer to the bodies. Were you notified to leave? Yes, I was told to go to the creek ahead of the water rescue, then got a call to go in the helicopter to take photos of the crime scene from the helicopter on the afternoon of the 14th. Over Deer Creek, over the bodies, over the bridge. Yes. Photos at the crime scene. Yes. How did you coordinate with Olahai and Page? I think he just said, we just know what to do. Did you carry a firearm or ammunition that day? No. I think he said, is that typical that you would not carry a firearm? And he said he was issued a large firearm and like the holster to hold the firearm would slap around, and he took it off and left it in the car at the cemetery that day. So he did not bring his gun to the crime scene. Continuing, page 25. Define ground zero. It was near the victims within several feet. Time you arrived at the crime scene. So he got to the cemetery at 1:11. He said within 10 minutes he was at the crime scene. What time did you leave? 10:30 p.m. Photos that he took. So Luttrell started showing some of these photos that Dazman took. Exhibits 64 through 77 he took. Majority of them he took on the 14th. And then the last two he took were on the 15th, the day after. I don't recall, was his answer actually. So aerial photos above Deer Creek was exhibit 64. It shows the Weber property on the right, and on the left side was the woods. Dwayne walked to the TV. Exhibit 65. The creek was on the left. The woods are on the right. So it's like the exact opposite direction. So like the crime scene is on the right from the helicopter, these are, and the creek is on the left. So 65, creek on left, woods on right, rescue team in the creek. Rosie said, so with the rescue team in the creek, it shows the relative depth of the creek at that location. Yes. Exhibit 66, Deer Creek is on the right. A closer view, woods on the left, again, an aerial view. Was it difficult to see from the crime scene? I'm sorry. Was it their difficulty seeing from the helicopter? Yes, there was an officer on the ground using a strobe light to get the attention of the people in the helicopter to show exactly where the crime scene was. Even though Dazman had previously been near the crime scene, he still had trouble in a helicopter finding it. And I think if you guys saw like the TV helicopter footage from the 14th, there are a few like flashes, and maybe that was this strobe light to get the attention of the other helicopter up in the air. Exhibit 67, view from the upper edge of the forest, they called it, and the cemetery behind him. So it's kind of like as you walk down from the cemetery, I guess there's like a, I don't even know, like a little area where you can kind of like see the creek and like the floodplain area. There was nothing really interesting in that picture. So I did not look at this part, but I wrote down what they were describing. Exhibit 68, 2 victims in final resting place. Sticks over their bodies. I wrote here, I did not look. 69, the opposite side, head to toes from Abby's standpoint. Exhibit 70, similar angle, closer to scene. You observe blood on the ground, is what Rosie asked Dazman. Yes, there is a blood pool. He pointed to it, like right over here. He's at the map, pointing this out for the jury. Using photography, do you want to document the conditions of the bodies at the scene? Correct. Exhibit 71. I may have said Rosie, but this is Luttrell, sorry. Exhibit 71, closer of Abby, neck injury, blood staining. 72, look on bodies for blood. The photo showed a heel with blood under her leg. It travels underneath, up there, he said. I wasn't looking to say right by the leg and the calf. So this is like Libby's lower leg and the blood on it. Again, this is the same photo, 72. Did you work with a team and use any equipment once dark? Yes, the ALS, alternative light source, blue light. Sergeant Page, who testified before this. What are you doing? He said. So you stand close to the body. Okay, so this is how Dazman spotted the unspent round. What were you doing? I guess as Luttrell asked him. I was standing close to the bodies, and I did not have one of these orange eye shields to like get the benefits of this blue light, the alternative light source. They, I guess Olahai and Page, moved the blue light around. Dazman saw glitter, G-L-I-T-T-E-R, as they were swinging that light back over again. And so Dazman turned on his flashlight and he brushed like the top layer of leaves away to see this shiny object better. He put light pressure on the leaves so not to disturb underneath. He saw under the leaves a .40 caliber cartridge. Next photo, 73, was of the right leg. And so I wrote here, it was really hard to see this shiny, whatever, unspent round. But I wrote it was 7 to 8 inches from Libby's right leg. And the part that was pointing out is the head stamp of the cartridge. Photo 74 is the cartridge stuck in the ground. Page 26, incoming. Hi, 747 people. I hope you're all behaving. Exhibit 75 is another photo. See head stamp and the primer. So the primer is like the back part of the round. Latrell, what's the difference between a bullet and a cartridge? So Dazman just said like the cartridge has the primer, powder, casing, projectile. Once fanned away the leaves, what happened to the cartridge? It was collected by Sergeant Olahai. Any other cartridges you found near the crime scene? No. He asked that question twice, essentially, and he said no. One was collected. Correct. One in the ground. At this point, I was kind of blocked. I was in the very back row. I wanted to see what Rick was doing at this point. I wrote Rick swiveling back and forth fairly fast. So he has like a swivel chair. I mean, I would not read anything into it. I'm just saying like that was his movement at that time. Back to the questioning. There were sticks on the bodies. Yes. Were those sticks examined? Did you participate in examining those sticks? Yes. Is there a systemic process to remove Libby, then Abby? Yes. I'm sorry. It's not the bodies, to remove the branches from Abby and Libby. So they set aside at the crime scene. Yes, we set aside the sticks and branches so no one would step on them. And Latrell said, you had been a crime scene investigator for 13 or 14 years at this point in 2017. And Dazman said 16 years. So the three of you, Olahai, Page, and Dazman, the three of you discussed what to do with the sticks. Yes. Do you leave them there? Yes. Why? We examined them. There was no blood on them. And most, no, not most, sorry. He said there was no blood on them. He said some of them had moss. And I think he used another word, lictin, Lichtin, maybe. He said like some of the branches were crumbling, or he said maybe crumbly. He said, never gotten DNA off such a surface like these crumbly branches. No evidentiary value. Latrell said, if there is evidentiary value, what do you do? He said, send it to the lab to examine. The role of CSI with the lab is to examine what reasonable to submit to lab. I didn't hear the answer. I'm sorry. Is it reasonable and best practice to take to the lab? And he said no. Returned. Okay, so this was February 14th. They found the bodies. You returned on March 3rd, 2017 to collect the sticks. Answer by Dazman. That's right. Knew where we had placed them. And he had also printed out photos they took on the 14th to make sure they were going to the right spot and taking the right sticks and branches. He took the sticks to the Lafayette police post. They put it in storage and a locked facility. So on February 14th, he remained from 1:11 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. He said, yes, that's the time. Were the bodies removed? Yes, before our departure at 10:30 p.m. Did you work with Page and Olahai to further examine the crime scene? Yes. On the 15th, did you return? Yes, we did. Maybe he said, what did you do at the crime scene in ground zero and larger area with yellow tape? We used a metal detector for more evidence. So that's on the 15th. They came back with metal detectors to look for some more possible evidence. Did you go across the creek on the 15th? Yes. Exhibit 76, Monon High Bridge looking I think it was east to west from the end part, from Weber's to the actual entrance. 27 of 36. Continuing with Dazman. So picture 77 was a disturbance in the soil at the down the hill area, which I've referred to this a few times. Did you look for shoe impressions? Yes, found a partial one up in here. It was hard to see on the screen. It may have been like middle way down on the down the hill, but don't quote me on that. But he followed up with, Dazman said, but the searchers may have climbed that and gone through the dirt on the 13th. So they didn't know if it was, he did not know if it was like the victims or whatever. Do shoe impressions have evidentiary value? He said no, which I don't know if that's true. The next thing was about characteristics, and I thought I heard flask characteristics, but I think it was class, C-L-A-S-S characteristics. So we said like a new sneaker, like a Nike, would have certain designs at the bottom. So that's like a class characteristic. But as you wear shoes and you get scuffs and you wrote, or he said, nicks and cuts, those are individual characteristics that can help like identify shoes and stuff. But it says none of, they did not find any of value. So no shoe impressions of value anywhere in this case. Dazman returned to the stand, no more questions, took a break until 3:30. I'm taking a water break. So I had some observations because I was one of the few people who stayed in the courtroom during this like 20-minute break. Rick was talking to defense attorney Auger. He raised his eyebrows during the conversation. I heard him say something, but I couldn't really hear. He smiled. So at this time, he's like just like standing. I don't know, it's just like so awkward, like seeing him standing there, knowing like what he's on trial for. Again, I'm not saying he's guilty. It's just like odd. So at that point, he was like, he went over to his chair. He has like this swivel chair. I wrote he had one arm holding the chair, and he's just like hanging out. It's kind of weird. And I wrote, it was weird to see him just standing there waiting for the next part of his trial. So at some point, he then had his hands behind his back, like this. So if you like put it back like this. And some people have said like maybe he was doing that out of habit because he's been in like shackles, but I mean, most of the time, isn't he in his jail cell alone and not in shackles and handcuffs? So those are my observations. Next up is Baldwin cross-examining Dwayne. Would you agree the bullet at the crime scene should have been photographed? No, excuse me. Would you agree the bullet at the crime scene should be photographically documented? Excuse me, I'm burping, I apologize. One final time. Do you agree the bullet at the crime scene should be photographically documented? Yes, it was. For one reason, this is Baldwin, for one reason, so the jury makes sure the bullet in the ground has the same attributes as the evidence that's going to be presented to them. Dazman said yes. Would you agree one way to do that is to videotape as the bullet is being picked from the ground to show any differentiations or angles, to show any different angles? Dazman said, no, I don't agree. Like, I agree with the defense. Like, why can't people just videotape this stuff to get like more evidence? So Dazman said it's better to package it and photograph it in a safe environment. Baldwin said, is it a problem to videotape? No, it's better to photograph. Baldwin had some other comment, but I could not hear. He said something about jury and evidence. Would you agree? Dazman did say yes. Because of the projectile, we saw the head stamp and the caliber and the company. And Dazman said, yes, that's correct. But sometimes, like I think Rosie said this before, the tips of gun or cartridges can be made of different substances. Yes. Does the law enforcement academy teach you to document? Period or question mark? Yes. Just in general, document. Yes. You did not document clothes were damp. So I guess there was some report that Dazman wrote, and he did not document that Abby's clothes were damp, and Dazman said, yes, I did not document that. Isn't it important to note dry versus damp? Dazman agreed, yes. Bolton said, it does not mean that because you did not document it does not mean that they were not damp. I know it's confusing. Dazman said, correct. Shoe prints looked similar to victim. There was one partial at the trail. Sergeant Olahai said it looked similar. Did you see the shoe prints of a small adult male next to the victim? No. Page 28. Is it your, I don't know, I'm tired. Is it your job to take the depth of the creek? Somebody else may have. When taking photos, did you tell the depth, or could you tell the depth? I'm not sure. No, I didn't say that. I did not enter the creek. There was one other comment next, but I totally missed it. Would you agree the crime scene was odd? No. Did the sticks look arranged? No. Luttrell objected to the word arranged, and Gull sustained. So you didn't collect the sticks because there's no evidentiary value. He said most of the sticks I wrote most parts were rough. So Baldwin said, well, if it's rough, isn't that good for possibly getting skin cells? And I think Dazman said, possibly. Was it a mistake not to take them? I don't think so. Somebody had to pick up the branches with their hands and place them on the girls. So wouldn't there be skin cells that would transfer to the branches, which I think that's a good point. And Dazman said, not if the killer was wearing gloves. There was some question, and the answer was they were collected. How much later? A couple days, which February 14th to March 3rd is more like a couple weeks, but we'll keep it moving. Baldwin said there was blood spatter on Libby's face. Yes, I'm not a blood spatter expert, though. Baldwin said, is it smart to get a blood spatter expert at the crime scene? And Dazman said, not necessarily. You can do it with like the examination with looking at photos. At tree, pattern, blood, F tree. Is it wise to analyze? And he said, no, photo documentation is good enough. Can photos document how thick the bark is on the tree? There's an objection to that as speculation, and it was sustained. So Baldwin said, when you said the photos were good enough, does the photo detail texture of the bark? Yes. So it took 7 years to get a blood spatter expert. Approximate amount of time. He said, I have no idea. So Baldwin says, part of the problem with shoe prints is that searchers were looking on the 13th and 14th, and he agreed, yes, we don't know like whose footprints are what. Is it hard to differentiate shoes between the searchers and the killer? Correct. Are you aware of items and sticks left behind that did have blood? He said maybe some leaves and smaller sticks were left behind that maybe had blood. So Baldwin said larger sticks should have been collected on the 13th. And Dazman said if they were of evidentiary value, but before he said because the quality of them, they were not any evidentiary value. Baldwin said blood on a stick has evidentiary value, and Dazman said yes. CSI asked to walk. Sorry. Oh yeah, so CSI was asked to walk the suspected killer's path. And the answer was just only guesstimate the area. I guess that the killer went from, I don't even know if it's like the bridge to the crime scene or the crime scene to exit onto 300. That was not clarified. Baldwin then said down the hill the slide mark, the access road, further around, look for footprints. Yes. Page 29 of 36. Continuing with Dazman. Did you go on the other side of the creek to the crime scene? Correct. North of the bodies where person might have left several times. So I guess he said several times we would go like to the cemetery and back from the crime scene. Oh yeah, so Baldwin was talking about the killer. So he said like this guy or girl, whoever killed them or people, you would need to check out the area. And Dazman said correct. Did you check on 300 North for shoe prints? No. West on 300 North, did you ask for evidence? He said something about an old T-shirt in the woods. 300 North, were you not asked to do crime scene investigation? There were no requests. Access Road and Hoosier Harvest Store, no. Would you have done it if you were asked? Yes. If somebody says, we think the person went around the buildings, would you look? I would have. Did you collect evidence at Brad Weber's? Do you know who that is? I don't. And he said, since he said I don't, Baldwin stopped that. Private drive. Did you look at tire marks to see if they were inconsistent with the homeowner's vehicle, AKA the defense saying maybe somebody else drove their car under the bridge. Bridge guy says, guys, go down the hill. And they just want to say, like if the Webbers, that's the last name of the homeowners at the end of the private drive. So like the crime scene investigator should have found out like what cars they drive and their tire marks to see if like another car, a stranger's, had been on that private drive. The answer was there was none in the gravel. I just wrote none in gravel. Footprints from Access Road down the hill to the creek, there were 3 sets. No. So I guess Baldwin was saying, was there like Abby, Libby, and Bridge Guy? Did you see like 3 sets of footprints on the suspected path? And he said no. Temperature of girls when there. I don't know, didn't test. So I guess like the body temperature when they found them. Should you have tested? No. Due to chance of sexual assault, you don't want to insert any temperature or thermometer to maybe lose evidence of a sexual assault. Baldwin said, could you put a thermometer under an armpit? And Dazman said, no. Baldwin said, if there's a CVS in town and you're not from here and you got a thermometer, could you take the core temperature? And Dazman said, there's different variables. You could not take the temperature to get time of death. There's variables like shade, sun, like getting wet. Baldwin, is more information better than less information? Yes. Were the girls cold to touch? Dazman did not touch them. I guess in his training, do they teach you to calculate the rate of declining body temperature? I don't recall. Baldwin gave Dazman Exhibit 41 and said, I believe, he said, I believe I've seen it before. So I wrote, sticks covered in blood. And Dazman said, yes, they are. Were they collected? I don't know, is the answer. Should you have collected them? Not necessarily. Can't pick up every stick and leaf. There's variables in play, like determining time of death, core body temperature, sunlight. That was Baldwin, and Dazman said, yes, I agree. This is Baldwin again. One variable is air temperature, the time you are there, analyzing the rate body temperature declined. I didn't hear the answer. Did somebody take the air temperature? Dazman said 41 degrees on the 14th at 1:11 when he arrived at the cemetery. Page 30. Your main job is to collect evidence. Yes. So you have no idea if the girls ever crossed the creek. He said something not to be sure about it. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what he said. You have no idea. Sorry. No idea when they got to where they were found. Dazman said, no, I don't have any idea. Review things collected, bra, saw and report. That was quick. Pink sock, no. Shirt on bank, no. So these are items that were found near the crime scene. A Jimmy John's is a restaurant, like a fast food restaurant. Jimmy John's, there's a Jimmy John's drink with a straw. And Dazman said, yes, it was fairly new. And I wrote couple, I'm not sure what that means. Did you get you can get DNA from a straw? And Dazman said, yes, that's why we collected it. There was an energy drink can, Camel cigarette butts. Several were fresh near the bridge. Area where the bodies were laid flat. So Baldwin said, the area where the bodies were found, do you consider that to be flat? And Dazman said, no, it's not like a field or a yard. Baldwin said, is it comparatively flat to the other parts? And he said, yes. Where did you find the Jimmy John's cup? West end of bridge, where the trail ends at the bridge. The opposite side of bridge photo. I'm not sure what that's all about. I apologize. Where did you find the cigarettes? Entrance to bridge. Same general area? Yes. Energy drink. Was that also found there? Yes. I think this might be Latrell asking these questions. So Latrell said, what's like the definition of the core temperature? And he said, center of body. So Latrell's like, you can't get the core temperature under the armpit if you're looking for the center of the body. And Dazman said, that's correct, you cannot. What's the best way to track evidence? Place in separate container. And Dazman said, correct. Have you ever videotaped collecting evidence and picking it up? No, only photos. Anything about this case that you would do different than the previous 16 years? No. So I guess Latrell was like, you had been an investigator for 16 years. Was there anything about this case that you did different or should have done different? And he said no. So it's Baldwin's turn again. If you could do over, would you take a photo of the other side of the bullet? Dazman said yes. Latrell then said images 183 and 184, he took, zoomed in, and showed Creek and water rescue team, and he said yes. 31 to 36, we're moving along. Baldwin, do you know the heights of the rescue team? No. Something about deeper in the middle of the creek, and Dazman said, I don't know. There's two jury questions. Number one, is there any reason to believe the bullet submitted to evidence could be a different bullet? And Dazman said, no, it's the same bullet. Number two, what's the process to ensure the jury sees evidence that has not been tampered with? So Dazman said there's policies, rules, regulations, chain of custody. They have to sign evidence with the clerk. There's a system in place. So then Latrell said, I wrote R, I'm not sure. Oh, ARA is a shortcut, sorry. Are items identified by case number? Yes. Are they sealed? Yes. If they're not sealed and they're given to the lab, what happens? So the clerk or whatever at the lab says the officer has to repackage properly. Done. So we're done with Dazman. Let me update one more person here. So this testimony is probably the most interesting. It answers a lot of questions, or some of them. Not sure if I'm spelling his name correctly. There we go. Brian Olahai. Stand by. Okay, he started at 4:10 p.m. today. I'm going to skip over his history. he was with Indiana State Police from 1995 to 2021. In fall of 2015, he had been a CSI investigator for 7 years. Crime scenes, 275 to 350. Like deaths were about 1/3 of that amount. February 14th, when we were alerted, 2 girls were found. He got a call from Carroll County Deputy or Detective Kevin Hammond. So he drove, I don't know where. So he called Jason Page, who had testified in the morning and the afternoon. Then he got another call from Hammond and said it involves murder. So he called Dwayne Dazman, who I just previously reviewed, and his supervisor he called. He had worked with Page and Gasman in the past on numerous occasions. So he arrived at the trail and cemetery, talked to Hammond, walked down the steep ravine. Approximately 55 to 57 and sunny, I guess on the 14th in the afternoon, the temperature. He said there were dead leaves around from being autumn or fall. He has experience with these type of crime scene areas outside. He is a hunter, but not a deer hunter. So he looked for tree stands, and he was advised that there might be trail cameras, but none were found. He asked homeowners if they regularly gave permission to hunters to hunt deer on their property. Scene security down ravine. Somebody named Trooper Wes Innes was putting crime scene tape up around trees, and they did have a log to document who entered and when they left, and that was already started. By the time he got there, the crime scene log was being documented. Designate areas from larger area as ground zero, about 20 to 30 feet around the bodies, plus an extra 15 feet, and he told no one else to enter, and they took a full accounting. Did you observe anyone at ground zero? There were 2 near the bodies. 50 yards from him, it was Carroll County deputies Yoder and Giancola, who we talked about previously. When you arrived, who was the lead officer in the ground zero? Actually, it was Brian Ole. He is considered the lead officer in this crime scene investigation. Something like 90 to 95% of crime scenes he worked were for other agencies. So he assisted Carroll County, and so he was the lead CSI for this case. 32. Did you carry a gun? I don't believe. If so, it would have been a Sig Sauer P227 45 caliber. And then I think that was his work gun. He said his private gun is a 9mm 45 caliber. Did you have any ammunition in possession? No. Did you interact with agents and staff? Yes, the FBI ERT is the evidence response team, and they collected items, collected clothing in the water, and took photos. So this clothing item, this is stuff that we've been waiting for a long time. It's coming up very soon. Did you direct Indiana State Police to receive the items? Yes, Jim Cody. Did you bring specific equipment to document the crime scene? Faro scanner, like maybe capital Faro. He said something like, it produces what appears to be a photo, but is actually points of light that's captured. Not sure what that is. You guys can go ask SIRI. I'm busy. Why is it important to put wet clothes in a drying room in like the lab? He said it's not like a clothes dryer. It moves filtered air in the room. So like these clothes that were found in the creek, they brought it to this drying room. Did you assist, I just wrote assist FBI search team broad area. Yes. So here's what they did. I think like these maybe 3 guys, it said they would step, walk, line up, and take 1 step at a time. Look for anything, trace or physical evidence. They got to end, swing line around, and searched again. So I don't know if that means like they were at the crime scene, walked to the creek and then walked back. I'm not sure about that. Did you document with photos? Yes. So exhibits 78 through 137, are they what you examined on February 14th and 15th at the autopsy? I think the answer is yes. So at this point, Rosie and Latrell approached Gull's bench for 1 minute. There's like a 1 minute pause. I wrote, I'm tired and my body and my head hurt. Next, who cares? Rosie, may we approach? Yes. So Latrell, Rosie, and Gull, they go to like the back corner behind the TV, and Gull pushes a button for white noise. So us nosy people with like bionic woman hearing can't hear. Moving along. Rosie objected to, so Rosie objected to quite a few photos. The summary is he tried it, Gull denied it. But, so I think some of the photos on the 15th were at the autopsy, and I think those might be the ones that Rosie had an issue with. Gull denied his objection, but she said the forensic pathologist needs to complete foundation. Something like she admitted over objection as long as the forensic pathologist completes the foundation, something like that. So basically whatever Olahai says, I guess coming up is going to be the forensic pathologist who's going to have to like complete the thought about these photos. Latrell, did you go to Deer Creek Bank to look at the clothing? Yes, photographed. So exhibit 78, Deer Creek at the north edge, and there's clothing stuck. So here's some new revelations. Other items in the frame, yes. There's items in two areas of this picture. I wrote about 40 feet apart. So a lot of us know that this, like the tie-dye shirt and the sneaker and one other item are like caught up. But it looked to me like 30 or 40 more feet downstream, very close to the bank. You'll find out what the words. Bodies almost direct north from the Libby sneaker and the tie-dye shirt. Olahai said the bodies were almost direct north of that, 50 to 75 feet from the bank. So blue jeans were in the foreground of this photo. So Abby's jeans were in Deer Creek, which I never knew that. Very close behind a limb and vine near the north edge of the creek. So maybe, I don't know if the killer put all of the clothes in at once in the creek. The three items get stuck, and maybe Abby's jeans and some other stuff get by, but they get caught up further down. So blue jeans in foreground, very close behind a vine and limb at the near edge of the north side of the creek. Ankle sock. Hold on. I can't read my writing, I'm sorry. Something about an ankle sock. Then next, underwater hooded sweatshirt. So Abby's gray sweatshirt was underwater. Tie-dye shirt. It seems like this item in the middle that a lot of us have wondered. So on the left is the tie-dye shirt. On the right is Libby's sneaker. He said in the middle is a handkerchief bandana type in the middle. And somebody said, could that have been Bridge Guy's scarf that he supposedly wore over his mouth? Pink footed sock or pink foot sock was found also in the creek. I'm almost done. Page 33 of 37, close up. Okay, so they took these items out of the creek and then they photographed them as they were putting them into evidence bags. And the ERT, the FBI team, was holding these items. So there was a close-up photo of the pink sock being held up by a member of the ERT team. Next up, string top shirt. He described it as a camisole. The brand was Faded Glory, size large 10 to 12. To me, it looked like dark gray. So like, I don't know, like people might say like spaghetti straps up here. and had like maybe, I don't know, this like shape here, and there was like a logo that was maybe like pinkish here. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. But I mean, I guess that was Abby's, maybe one of her undershirts. I'm not sure. So picture number 84, jeans. Oh yeah, so jeans were found, they were inside out. And there was underwear like attached to the jeans. So these were found in Deer Creek. Underwear, like maybe it was like around the knee area. I'm not sure because I couldn't really see the how it was all like laid out. So I apologize. But there were Abby's jeans were inside out. There was a pair of underwear, maybe around the knee area. I'm not sure it was like wrapped up through the leg or what. Next picture, 85, tie-dye shirt, extra large, color tone brand. It was also inside out. 86, a darker sock that was like black or dark navy. 87, handkerchief, bandana. It was like gray, a light gray color. 88, black Nike sneaker. It was the left sneaker. It was her left sneaker. The shoelaces were tied. 89, hooded sweatshirt. This said it was between shirt and jeans. So again, yeah, I think a hooded sweatshirt was in the creek. Don't quote me on that one. So then they went to more pictures from the ground zero, which is the area near the bodies. Photo number 90, area ground zero, bodies of girls. At this time, I looked over and Rick was looking at the TV with the photos, the dead photos, the close-ups of Abby and Libby dead and their wounds. Next, I wrote, near Abby's shoe was a pool of blood. Picture 91, or exhibit 91. Blood on the ground, sticks, leaves. Did you observe blood on Libby's feet? So Olahai said, yes, on right heel. Her right leg had several areas and the back of her leg had blood. Exhibit 92, another photo with a pool of blood, Libby's right foot, blood on thigh, hand, torso, left arm. Her left arm, I guess it was above her head. Libby's body, something about limbs and branches placed over bodies, transferred some debris into Libby's armpit. Wounds caused by a sharp-edged instrument. Exhibit 94, several injuries caused by branch? Oh, sorry, several injuries covered by branch. Process of looking at one victim. So they worked on Libby's body first, they documented it, removed her, and then worked on Abby's body. So Brian Olahai said, hands have evidence. Look closely and swab. Item collected from, sorry, there was an item collected from one of hands. So he swabbed the hand. The process is to wear gloves. He wears 2 pairs of gloves. He took the swab to try to collect touch and transfer DNA and skin cells. So you rub the swab on the skin to try to pick up cells, rub it at a brisk rate. So they have a new package and a new container for each piece of new evidence. They use a paper envelope or bag because plastic is never used for some whatever reason. I forget what he said. Each swab is individually packaged. I guess that was for Libby's right hand. So they went to the left hand of Libby, same process, focus on wrist, which was an area with less blood. So if you collect blood, like an area from where there's a lot of blood, there's usually a single depositor and it comes from the victim. So you would expect that the victim's DNA would be wherever their blood was. So the suspect DNA gets muted out if like the area of the body has mostly Libby's blood. 34, we're almost done. Like 3 more pages. So the next 2 slides, portions of Libby's right thigh, blood moved from one side to other. So I guess like her blood dripped in certain ways. Alternative light source, look for biological evidence like saliva, semen. So Dadzam or Gadzam saw the reflection, the 40 caliber. I looked over at Rick at this point and I wrote Rick watching, moving body a bit, back and forth, nothing major. He has a swivel chair, so he might have been going like this really quick. It was like nothing major. I would not read anything into it. It appeared to be a gun cartridge. The primer was showing, so it was unfired. They placed it in a paper container by Brian, this Olahi guy. How many cartridges did you find? Only one. We searched and none others were found. Put it in evidence storage. So at this point, I wrote Rick moving upper body like rocking swivel chair back and forth fast, but not far or forward. I don't know, he might have been going like this real quick, but not for long. Again, don't read into this stuff. I'm just saying, just to give you like a general update. After the process of the cartridge, Libby was placed in a body bag and a white sheet. While at ground zero, who had access to the ground zero until the coroner got there? Yoder and Giancola from Carroll County Sheriff's, but they were around the perimeter. 25 to 30 feet around the bodies was Page, Gadsman, Cody, and Olahi. So only 4 people got near the bodies. Something about the backside of Libby, 3 areas of blood and dirt. Once remove the body, examine area underneath. He said yes, nothing specific was found. Asked about quantity of blood. Brian said a fair amount in one area. Other area had largest amount in like a pool of blood. Something about Abby and stick removed in photo. Something about sweatshirt. I guess it was a close-up of her wound, the sweatshirt, and the injury to her neck. What about the position of Abby's arms? He said an angle from forearm, hands inside of sleeves fully. So I did not look at the picture, but he went like this, like Abby was like this. So like Libby's sweatshirt was pulled up totally up to here. So her hands were covered. But at some point, like they did move down the sweatshirt to see if there were any other injuries on her hands. So sticks removed, and he said, I thought she was wearing a Delphi swimming sweatshirt, which was Libby's sweatshirt. He said mud, dirt, debris on her jeans. Her skin, or just that skin, both cool to touch, rigor mortis. Abby's jeans, wet, maybe wet where they're bunched off or bunched up. The top of the jeans were beginning to dry. Her shirt and t-shirt and sweatshirt were wet to the touch, consistent with being in water, not condensation. Exhibit 107. Do you recall the jean size that was found in the creek? No. And then he said, I think it was a 26 waist. Another photo was a close-up of Abby's injury, again caused by a sharp-edged instrument. There was pooling of blood at the left side of Abby's neck. Her left hand had some dirt and debris on hands. I think this is Latrell asking this. So who moved Abby's sleeves? He did, to have to see any kind of further evidence on her hands. Did you find blood on Abby's left hand? No obvious blood. Abby's right hand, no blood. Exhibit 112, Abby's hands and fingernails. I guess a close-up photo. Both victims, I guess the evidence, they packaged everything in their own container, sent to Indiana State Police storage and the lab. Okay, so Abby was wearing Libby's sweatshirt, and Brian was asked, did you adjust Abby's clothing since she was covered with the sweatshirt? Yes, they had to lift up her sweatshirt to see if she had any other injuries. Final page. Well, almost the final page. I am 1 hour and 46 minutes behind. That's a new Tom record. Page 35 of 36. Exhibit 113 was a photo exposing Abby's torso. Next up, I guess 114 was Abby's left foot. So her shoes were removed just to like see more evidence. There was dirt on the bottom of her feet. She was likely barefoot at one point. So she didn't have any socks on, so she was barefoot at one point. How this all played out, I don't know that this really gives us any more insight. Exhibit 115. The jeans were too large for Abby. There was dirt and wetness, but some areas were beginning to dry. Exhibit 116. Abby's right foot, dirt inside her. So there's dirt inside her Converse sneakers. Soiled area inside. Muddy, potentially from Deer Creek. Shoes moist to touch. Consistent with soil at the bottom of Deer Creek and along the bank. Next up said tennis shoe, which would have been Libby's black Nike shoe, similar to the one from the creek. Shoe obscured by hooded sweatshirt that Abby was wearing. The sole of Libby's shoe had dirt, so it was underneath Abby's body. It had dirt. Wait, that might not be true. I just wrote sole of shoe, dirt. It might be Abby's Converse. I apologize. Sweatshirt back said German. So that's Libby's last name. So it says Delphi Swimming, German. Nike shoe, right shoe. So I drew a diagram. So they moved Abby's body to the side and they found Libby's other shoe underneath Abby. So how am I going to show this? Because I have a similar, please stand by. Forget it, I can't find it. So picture the ground, and like here's like the white part, the bottom, white bottom of the sneaker. And then here's like the Nike logo like on the black. So the bottom of the sneaker, the white logo, the top of the sneaker. So that's under, it's like kind of on a side. So you see more of like the white side. And then they lifted that up and they found Libby's phone. So let me just get to these other things before I get to the phone. Blood, so this is Abby. Blood around neck, on clothing, upper torso. No obvious blood on lower items. Shoe. So under that was the cell phone. Libby's cell phone had a purple case around the phone. It had a Harry Potter theme and said Gryffindor. The phone was almost completely covered by the shoe. What's that? I looked over at Rick and he was writing on his notepad. Item 120, 120, I don't really know what that was. Yeah, I wasn't really looking at some of these things. 122, area near tree, smaller pool of blood near where Libby's head and shoulders were. So this picture did not have any bodies in it. So it's kind of like very close to the tree, looking down on the ground like a pool of blood. So then Brian went back on the stand. Have body of Abby transported? Yes. Like he said with Libby, they would put on like a white like bed type sheet. It was clean for each person, and a new body bag, zipped and sealed. What was collected? Oh, sorry. I wrote collected blood from crime scene. Yes. What blood? Ground, bodies, tree, sent to Indiana State Police, then storage, then the lab. They had markers on the ground to indicate which items were found near which evidence markers. Yes. What happened to the victims after that? They were put in a van. The Carroll County coroner, I think Jay Dupree, took them to Terre Haute, which is a town in Indiana. If you're wondering if Brian seemed competent or incompetent, I wrote he seems competent and good at his job. So on February 15th at Terre Haute, Brian also went there around 7:30 a.m. for the autopsies. He left the crime scene the previous night on the 14th around 10:30 to 10:45 p.m. What is Brian's role at the autopsy? Again, just like crime scene investigation to document various items. I think he said DNA stain card, maybe STAIN card. So items that the pathologist collected went to Brian, I think, and he would package them up in paper individually. Autopsy, items evidence the coroner finds useful. Asks the coroner if any oddity that needs to have a photo taken of it. He did that in this case. CSI autopsy Sergeant Brian Mullen was also attending. Final few lines on page 36. Did Mullen take any items? Yes, he took clothing from Abby that were still moist. Sergeant Cody took, this other guy, Sergeant Cody, took the clothes from the creek. So I guess Mullen took the ones that were still on Abby's body. At this point, Latrell and Rosie approached the bench. It was 5:47 p.m. Gull said it's been a long day. I think she said we were going to start tomorrow at either 9 or 9:30. And I'm so far behind. Here we go. An hour and 53 minutes. It's 8:47. I'll go to like 2:10. Sorry, I'm tired. I'm just going to go to a random one. Hi, Malibu. Faro, forensic technology from the tech company Faro that uses 3D laser scanners to document crime scenes. Thank you. Hi, Badass American. I think Alan was wearing the same t-shirt he's seen wearing when he went to Tennessee. Well, didn't he go to Tennessee after the murders? And if it had blood on it, why would he still be wearing it? Hi, Crime Jester. Okay, so Abby wearing her own jeans, but they were inside out. No. Abby was found in Libby's jeans. Abby's jeans were inside out in the creek. So there were more items in the creek that I had ever heard about. Cecil Hotel, hi. Thank you so much for that one. And also that one, I truly appreciate you. Thank you. Hi, Shadowbox, thank you. I'm so tired. Whatever. Cuddle yourselves, Delulu Bishes. I don't have time to eat. I had leftovers from cooking with strangers. Thank God somebody was nice enough to make me so much food. Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for your generosity. Does Tom like tacos in Indiana? I might go to Roscoe's in Indianapolis on Sunday. I'm not sure. One of my subscribers has been talking about it for a while, so I might do that. Hi, Josh. Yeah, I did not want to see, I've never wanted to see the crime scene photos of their injuries, so I just looked away. But I did look at some of the ones where I could hear first what the description was. So I did see like the clothing in the creek, which, like I said, was surprising. I'm gonna have to look back at some of the helicopter photos to show you guys exactly where like Abby's jeans were found. Hi, Bridget. Thank you for joining. Hi, Providence. Any idea of motive? How did Rick know that the girls were there? Was this just a chance encounter? Apparently, he told a motive in one of his confessions, but it's not been revealed, although it has kind of been. I think in opening statements, McClellan said his motive was to have his way with the girls, but then he was interrupted, and then he was forced to take them across the creek, which I always assumed wrongly that the interruption happened on the north side of the creek. Hi, she Elf Johnson. I wondered if Bridge Guy was just trying to cover the girls in branches to hide them, but got interrupted and had to leave. I asked a few people who saw the branches in the morning session, and they said no, it seemed more deliberate than that. And I was like, well, what if Libby's dad called twice and he saw that? And they said no, it seemed pretty deliberate. So Cuddle Yourself says, we haven't heard the state's case yet. Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to come. I really want to see the blue jacket taken from Rick's house to see, does the material match up to Bridge Guy's? We have to hear from all these witnesses, the 127 Hoosier Harvester video to see if it matches Rick's car. Last night, I was looking at the pictures from Rick's car at CVS from summer 2022, and I wrote down like the characteristics. I'm such a dork. Hold on. Please stand by. I wrote down the characteristics of that car. So if I'm in the courtroom when that 127 video is shown or screenshots, I want to see, like, does that car match these characteristics of Rick's car from summer 2022? And if you have nothing better to do, here's my list. Let me show this to you guys real quick. The train here is so loud. Can you hear it? I'm filing a complaint. Let's stop that. Okay. Some beautiful person found this photo that I zoomed in. So this is CVS Delphi in the front, in the corner. Summer 2022, there was a drone taking photos of CVS because they were selling it for $3 million. So it appears that this is a 2016 Ford Focus, which I'm assuming, and I'm always wrong, so don't listen to anything I say. It's a black Ford Focus from 2016. So I wrote a list of things. I'm not sure if there's a back window tint, so I'm not sure about that. But black hubcaps. So you see black hubcaps. Most people have like the silver type. So if I have the column that says yes on the left, no on the right. So if I see the 127 video and it does not have black hubcaps and has like silver, I'm going to write no. And that's good for Rick that it doesn't match his car. Rear red brake light wrap around like a triangle. So this is fairly long here. So I want to see what that looks like on the Hoosier Harvester. Front right headlight wraps back a little bit. In the back, I have another photo. Small trunk hood window, and it's at like an angle a bit because it's a hatchback. And over here is a small third window in the back seat. So that's that. Hopefully I'll be in court because that's like one of the biggest items I want to see is this 127 video to see if it does match Rick's timeline that he said he left at 1:30, but apparently it's going to maybe show him arriving at 127. Hi, Zoe. I don't know about that. YouTube bad actors. Sleuth Intuition is betting that Rick will change his plea by Wednesday. He still seems pretty relaxed. I'm saying he's not changing any kind of plea, although I was kind of wondering, like seeing these girls and what was done to them, if he truly is the killer, would that like bring back some kind of memories where he like freaks out and he's like, I did it, and that didn't happen. And if you're wondering, his family was there his wife, mom, they were in the courtroom looking at these photos. Hi, Cocktail Dress. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who's given money on Cash App and Venmo and this. Thank you. I really appreciate it. No, I'm not looking to make money. I'm just looking for some help with. It's going to cost me like $6,000 to spend the entire trial. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. Hi, until tomorrow. What things did Rick know that only the perp would know? Yes, that's another huge thing that still needs to be presented. Wait and find out. Crime Jester, do we know if the bullet found matches the box of bullets taken from Rick's home? I don't know if I described this, but yes. It was said that it's a Winchester, and Winchester and Blazer, I'm almost certain, were taken from Rick's house in 2022. Hi, Laura. You're welcome. YouTube bad actors. Somebody who's a lawyer who's been attending the trial, Andrea Burkhart, is saying there's no way that all of their blood was spilled at the scene, assuming that all their blood was drained, and everyone swallows that. I don't know. I've not seen the blood. I saw like one picture of a small blood spot. It just doesn't make sense to me that somebody would kidnap them on a car on the private drive around 2:15. Like all over the Indiana news on Monday the 13th at 10:30 and 11 o'clock on the local news, they're like there's searchers out in the woods looking for these kids at the High Bridge. Who would like kill them somewhere else and then drag them down this ravine to the crime scene? It just doesn't make sense to me, if I'm being honest. Cocktail dress. Yeah, I want to, we all do. Not just the content, not just the details only the killer would know, but the tone of his voice, and not even just that, like matching Bridge Guy, but the video, because there's video of Rick Sell at Westville constantly. So especially like on April 3rd, 2023, when he picked up his tablet and called his wife and said, "I killed those girls." That's the day that he met with the defense team. So is it before or after that meeting? What is the video showing him doing in his cell? Like, is he pacing back and forth about to like, is he crying? Is he looking at pieces of paper that he just got from the defense and he's like, I'm screwed? I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Like 10 more minutes. I'm tired. She, Elf Johnson, this case can be a good lesson, and some things cops can do better. Yeah, you can say that again, sister. No, but seriously, it's like, what have Indiana State Police learned from this case? And I don't know what the answer is. Instead of scrolling forward, I'm scrolling back an hour. Hi, Strictly Chaos. Yeah, you guys, can you like behave? Thank you. Hi, Juliana. Juliana says, wait, so they're trying to say that bullet could have been someone else's. Yes, they're trying to insinuate that a member of law enforcement could have dropped a random bullet, unspent round out of their pocket, 6 to 8 inches from Libby's foot. And so the crime scene guys are saying only 4 of us were there. And I don't think any of them, I forget what I just read, to be honest. I don't think any of them had a 40 caliber gun, and they didn't have any like random 40 caliber ammunition in their pockets that could fall out. But I do agree with the defense that it would be a better technique to process a crime scene to videotape like pulling out this unspent round. Hylan, did Libby have a cell phone, iPad? Yes, she had both. The iPad was taken from home, I think. So after she was missing, I think Kelsey or somebody brought it to the police station to see if they could figure something out. Hi, Lone Pony. Defense is really focusing on topography type questions. Yeah, I don't know. They're talking about like the floodplain and flatness. Oh, yeah. During a lot of these questions, I'm just sitting there like wondering, like, how is this relevant to whether or not Rick is the killer? Like, speed it up, people. Hi, Anna. Yeah, I do agree with you on this one. The other ones, I'm not so sure. I'm kidding. No criminal will return victims to a relatively small area that is potentially swarming with searchers and law enforcement. The only reason I could think that someone would do that is if they were trying to specifically pin it on Ron Logan for whatever reason. I see some rude comments about other people in the chat. You guys like save the drama for other chats. I prefer we just talk about like case facts and stuff. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not really taking breaks. That's the problem. Um, so many people say they appreciate what I'm doing, and I want to keep helping you guys out with bringing you as much details as I can. The problem is, last night people lined up at like 7 p.m. And as you can see and hear, I'm like beyond exhausted. And it's like day 3 or 4 of 30. I don't know. We'll see. You're welcome, Violet. Hi. 6 more minutes, then it's time for bed. Hi, understand, Blue. Hi, Anne. Doesn't seem like Rosie made much of a dent in this state's witness, although it doesn't sound like state witness did much except act as conduit for introducing crime photos into evidence. Sorry. I'm trying to think, like if I'm on the jury, am I having reasonable doubt about Rick and the unspent round possibly being law enforcement? After today, I really wouldn't think that the unspent round could have been one of these 4 guys or somebody random previously dropped it. Overall, I feel like there hasn't been really that much evidence that's either proving or disproving whether Richard Allen was bridge guy. Again, it's like day 4 of 94. Hi, JM. Paige is giving some good answers, although Gadsden or Daz, whatever his name was, I mean, he did admit, yeah, we should have maybe videotaped it or done things differently. I don't know. I don't think the unspent round is going to be what convicts Rick or does not. Hi, Daisy. Lots of leaves on the ground. Yes. around this unspent round, I felt like, I mean, it was not like clear space at all. I'm kind of surprised that they found this or saw this shiny object at all. I'm not saying it was planted at all. Um, but yeah, it seemed to be like a lot of debris around this unspent round, and I could barely see it, but I was like 60 feet away from the TV. And it wasn't really zoomed in that much. Final 3 comments. Thanks for joining. Hopefully you're finding these helpful. I apologize that there's an echo in this room. I'm here for the next 4 nights. Deal with it. You might want to watch Andrea Burkhart or Lawyer Lee or Beyond the Evidence. There's a few other YouTube channels who are also taking notes, so if you don't like me, go watch them. Final comments. Oh, geez. All right, that's it. Sorry, just looking for different topics. Anne says, I just can't imagine how that tie-dye shirt got into the creek, unless Perp was forcing victims to start to undress before that creek crossing. Hard to figure. Well, because these jeans were found like they were further down and also another sock. To me, I feel like after the murders, Bridge Guy went back down to the creek and let these items go, and they got stuck. But the sock, like a shirt, a t-shirt, I don't know. I need to like keep track of everything that's new, the clothing that was found in the creek. And Abby's jeans were inside out, as was Libby's t-shirt. So obviously, it seems like he forced them to get undressed. How Abby then put her shoes back on with Libby's jeans and Libby's sweatshirt, but Libby did not put any clothes back on. I'm not sure how that turned out. Code Gray, hi. There's no solid evidence why the bloodlust. I don't know that there's bloodlust, but we're waiting for more evidence. We haven't seen if the evidence is solid or not. Cryptex, hi. Sticks and footprints are not of evidentiary value. Yeah, I was surprised about that. I guess some of us have wondered, would there be like smaller footprints or shoe prints that match Rick, who's obviously not that tall? And apparently not. Because Baldwin specifically said, were there any footprints of a small adult male or something like that? And the guy said no. Final comment. Hi, Lisbeth. Thank you. I did not go this morning, so I did not see a lot of the crime scene photos of the victims or their injuries. I mean, I went this morning. I just didn't get in. There was too many people. Hi, Nikki. Thank you. Next topic. Crime Jester, what are you confused about? Yes, Abby's jeans were inside out and found in the creek. She was wearing Libby's jeans. All right, my eyes are hurting and I gotta go. My contacts. Apparently, I'm gonna be here the same, or sorry, I was like 25 minutes late. Tomorrow, depends when it gets out. hopefully 6:30 p.m. with a bunch more notes. Sorry, I'm just tired and whatever. Wait, let me just make sure I got everybody here. Thank you, YouTube bad actors and this account. I appreciate it. And anybody else, thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next one. Bye.